Hey Gators, we're back with community-based research. So we're going to talk about participatory evaluation and kind of going out there and being among your subjects as you do evaluation work. So I felt like it was important to kind of go into the purpose and the why and the how of this kind of work so that it could guide you in your studies. So let's begin. First, we're going to talk about participatory evaluation. Okay, so first, what is it? It's really an evaluation that involves all stakeholders in your project, those directly affected by it or who are carrying it out in every phase of evaluating it, and in applying the results of that evaluation to improving the work. So it's really gathering everyone at the table and letting everyone participate. So why would you use participatory evaluation? Well, it gives you a better perspective on the needs of the project's beneficiaries and on its ultimate effects. It can get you the information you wouldn't get otherwise. It tells you what worked and what didn't, so it's really, really good for lessons learned. And it gives you the perspective from those directly involved, beneficiaries and staff. It can tell you why something does or doesn't work. It results in a more effective project. It's very empowering. It can provide a voice for those who are often not heard. It teaches skills for people used in employment and other areas of life. And across the team, it makes everybody a little bit more effective in evaluation because they're kind of learning by doing. It bolsters self-confidence and self-esteem in those who may have little of either when they kind of feel like their story is being heard and that they matter. It demonstrates to people the ways in which they can take more control over their lives, so it increases efficacy, and it also is an increaser of self-determination. It encourages ownership of the project. It sparks creativity in people involved. It encourages working collaboratively, and it fits into a larger participatory effort, which it's kind of a all hands on deck approach, if you will. So why you wouldn't use this? There are reasons why maybe you'd want to go a different route. So the disadvantages are it's very time consuming, right? Gathering everyone, scheduling a meeting, having time to kind of go in and out of all the details. It's very, very time consuming than a more conventional process that doesn't use that many actors. It takes the establishment of trust among everyone involved in the process. So if there are fragile relationships at the table, you might want to steer clear of this. Or if there are a lot of politics involved, this one can be really tricky to navigate. You have to make sure that everyone's involved, not just the leaders of various groups, and that people feel willing to speak at the table. So you have to have people who are good facilitators that know when to tell someone to kind of pipe down and to tell someone else when to speak up. You have to train people to understand evaluation and how the participatory process works, as well as teaching them some basic research skills. If you don't have the time to do that, and it's just not really going to happen, then this might not be for you. You have to get buy-in and commitment from participants, and if that's hard to come by, maybe skip it. People's lives just get in the way sometimes. Illness, childcare, and relationship problems, getting the crops in may cause delays or get in the way of evaluation. So just the busyness of our lives can allow people to turn into a scheduling nightmare. You may have to be creative about how you get, record, and report information, especially if scheduling is an issue. Maybe some people are at the table live, maybe other people are video recorded, maybe other people are phone or email. And there are some differences with how we present ourselves in those different media. So you have to take that into consideration. You also need funders and policymakers believing and understanding in the participatory process. And sometimes funders are a little skeptical of how useful it is, or people just don't have the buy-in and commitment, which would make it very, very complicated to do. So when you're ready to use this kind of evaluation, this is kind of how you know you're ready, when you know you're ready. If you're already committed to a process, then sure, you're ready to do it. If you have the time when results are more important than time, and again, it's about quality rather than quantity, you can convince your funder that it's a good idea, that there's a lot to be gained from it. When there may be issues in the community or population that outside evaluators or program providers, for that matter, really aren't likely to be aware of. And this is one of the only ways to get after that, is to have everyone at the table with those ideas and bringing them up. That when you need information that would be difficult for anyone outside the community or population to get. So sometimes it's just an advantageous opportunity. When part of the goal of the project is to empower participants and help them develop transferable skills, then yeah, you want them at the table so that they can articulate that. Or when you just want to bring the community or population together, sometimes you get just fantastic insights by bringing the right people in the room and the creative juices flowing. So who should be involved in participatory evaluation? So these are all the players at the table. So we say all stakeholders, including participants, beneficiaries, project line staff, people on the front lines running your program, and or volunteers, administrators, outside evaluators, maybe people not employed by the grant, but people called in to provide evaluation kind of from a less biased, less internal perspective. Community officials are also really good. And then again, others whose lives are affected by the project. So it can be lots of different people. And then how do you conduct a participatory evaluation? Well, first you have to recruit everybody. You need to train them. You need to name and frame the issue so everyone is committed to what is going to be discussed. You need to develop a theory of practice to address it, where we say, okay, this is the project we're doing. This is our theory. This is our belief of how this happens and why, and the practice and the activities that are going to get after those processes. Determine the evaluation questions you're going to use up front, and sometimes they even emerge as you go, but you want to have a set of questions that are going to set the agenda for the day. Collect the information, analyze it, and then use your analysis to celebrate what worked and adjust the rest to improve your project. Stick with it indefinitely. So if you do this continuously throughout your project, it's really, really helpful. So let's kind of change gears a little bit. We're going to go into community-based participatory action research, okay? So this is where we go even deeper into the community participants in your project, your program, or whoever your organization serves. Okay, so it's basically research conducted by and for those most directly affected by the issue, condition, situation, or intervention being studied or evaluated. And the reason you would use a community-based approach, which is a little bit less leadership, more people experiencing it, is it yields better and more nearly complete and accurate information from the community. So it's like from the horse's mouth. This is boots on the ground, really in-depth and accurate stories and quotes and experiences from the community that are involved. It makes the community research a positive outcome, and it meets the community needs more likely. So again, it kind of brings in some commitment and involvement to your project. This kind of action research trains citizen researchers who can then turn their skills to other problems as well. So it's a very empowering experience to learn a little bit about research. Maybe try it with some other things that you'd like to solve in your life. And this involvement changes people's perspectives of themselves and of what they can do. So again, it's a very empowering, cohesive process where it kind of turns people into community action leaders, which is really exciting to see that. They kind of get bit by the research bug, by the project bug, and they get excited and energized by what's going on to continue it forward into more and more really beneficial projects. So again, more reasons as to why you would use more community people in doing participatory action research is the skills learned in the course of action research actually do carry over into other areas of the researcher's lives, where they can use this to use good decision-making skills, to use good deductive reasoning or inductive reasoning, trying to determine efficacy and whether something works and practicality. So it's just really good, useful ways to live our lives. This process can also help break down racial, ethnic, or class barriers by recognizing them, by recognizing how they exist and the processes by which they occur. Action research also helps people better understand the forces that influence their lives, the institutions involved in why something is the way it is, the rules, the policies, the laws that maybe empower or even get in the way of a productive life. It also can move communities toward positive social change. So again, if you're really interested in advocacy or working with a nonprofit that wants to get after effectiveness of programs and projects, this area is really for you. Who should be involved in this kind of research? So again, people most directly affected by the intervention, other members of the population, decision makers. So again, you can bring in city, county, state, national officials, academics with an interest in the issue or intervention in question. They've been trained on research, they've been trained on bias, and they can bring kind of a perspective that's unique and different from a scientific point of view. Health, human service, and public agency staff and volunteers, they're going to bring experience from maybe working with that population over time. And then again, community members at large that have a stake in the outcome. There is time to or who should be involved and when should you do it? When there's time to properly train and acclimate community researchers, and when the analysis necessarily relies on interviews, experience, knowledge of the community and an understanding of the issue or intervention from the inside, rather than on academic skills or an understanding of statistics, unless you have the time and resources to teach those skills or someone on the team who actually has them. So just being able to gather insights can be really good if you maybe fall short of some of those more formal research skills that you're after. This can at least uncover some truths about your project that would be worth doing. Some other reasons to consider when you should employ community-based participatory action research, we call it PAR, is maybe you need an entry into the community from which the information is being gathered, and you can't just like show up and watch people because it's super awkward. So if you can help them understand that this is part of your project, you're gathering data, you're gathering feedback, then it kind of gives you a natural reason to be there if you don't have a reason otherwise, and you're kind of worried about people feeling kind of watched like a bunch of fish in a fish tank. So it lets you kind of give a natural reason for being there. You're concerned with buy-in and support from the community, but if they feel like their stories and experiences are being recorded in a way that's empowering, that tells the tale of a life lived, that is important to share their experience, then it really creates some strong buy-in and support. It's also important when you want to have an effect and empower the community researchers, and you set the stage for long-term social change. So again, you enter this community very authentically, very genuinely, of wanting to understand lived experience and capturing that experience as accurately as you can. So how do you institute and carry out community-based participatory action research? Well, you have to commute a community research team. You got to orient and train your team, and your team determines the questions that the researcher or the evaluation will try to answer, and there will be many brainstorming sessions that try to do that. The team will plan and structure the research activity, and as a team, you're going to carry out your plan. So it might be a lot of different methods that you use to do that. It could be focus groups, it could be interviews, it could be surveys, it could be a lot of things. Ethnography, GIS, geographic information systems, it could be policy analysis, it could be content analysis. There's just lots of ways to gather information. So the point is to gather the community as the source. And then again, the team is going to prepare and present a report and recommendations on its work. You take or try not to bring about appropriate action. Try to bring about, not try not to. So you want there to be kind of action items attached to the things that you find. You want to evaluate the process by which these things surfaced. You provide an opportunity for team members to reflect on and discuss their learning and the effects of the experience. And you maintain the gains by keeping the team members involved. And so again, you can kind of do a little bit of train the trainer here, where you help them decode and understand the effects that are common and the patterns that emerge. So again, this is a really exciting way to involve people that are a part of the intervention in the research process. We'll see you in the next lecture.